everyone, and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The winds of change begin to stir quietly, almost imperceptibly, as the world of the young and the restless hints at a life-altering twist waiting just beneath the surface. At the heart of it all stands Billy Abbott, a man who believes he has finally found some sense of direction, unaware that fate may be preparing to shake his world in the most unexpected way. Far from home, in the grey elegance of London, Sally Spectra has been standing beside him, offering unwavering support as he attempts to mend his fractured relationship with Jill Abbott. The trip carries emotional weight filled with quiet reconciliations and fragile hope, but beneath Sally's composed exterior, something far more personal and unsettling begins to take root. As the journey draws to a close and the thought of returning home looms, Sally carries with her not just memories of London, but a secret that threatens to change everything. Back in familiar surroundings, the truth begins to press in on Sally with an intensity she cannot ignore, a quiet realization that sends her thoughts spiraling. A subtle shift in her body, a missed moment that refuses to be dismissed, and suddenly the possibility becomes impossible to ignore. She might be pregnant. The weight of that thought alone is enough to send her into an emotional storm, pulling her back into memories she has never truly escaped. Once before, she had carried a child, a fragile hope she shared with Adam Newman, only to have that dream shattered by an unbearable loss that left scars far deeper than anyone could see. That grief lingers in the shadows of her heart, and now faced with the possibility of another pregnancy, it rises again with haunting clarity, making every thought heavier, every breath more uncertain. Desperate for clarity, yet terrified of the truth, Sally turns to Audra Charles, someone she trusts to keep her secret while she navigates the storm building inside her. Their conversation is charged with tension, every word carrying the weight of what might be, as Sally confesses her fears and suspicions. Audra, ever practical yet quietly supportive, doesn't let Sally spiral too far before taking action, stepping in to ground her in reality. With quiet determination, she secures a pregnancy test, passing it to Sally in secrecy as though it holds the power to unlock a future neither of them is fully prepared to face. In that small, fragile moment, the world seems to narrow down to a single choice, whether to confront the truth now or delay the inevitable. Audra gently urges her not to let her imagination run wild, offering to stay by her side as she takes the test, a steady presence against the tide of uncertainty, threatening to pull Sally under. Time stretches in an almost unbearable way as Sally stands on the edge of that moment of truth, her thoughts racing through every possible outcome. What if it's real? What if life is once again growing inside her, fragile and full of promise, yet shadowed by the fear of what could go wrong? And perhaps even more daunting is the question of how Billy will react, whether he is ready to embrace something so life-changing at this stage in his life. His own children are no longer small. They are growing into their own independence, and the idea of starting over might not be as simple as it once was. Sally feels the weight of that uncertainty pressing against her heart, leaving her caught between hope and fear, longing and hesitation, as she contemplates what this could mean for their future together. And yet, beyond the fear and the unanswered questions, there is something else beginning to take shape, a quiet possibility of a new chapter waiting to be written. Whether the test reveals a new life or simply a close call that forces deeper reflection, it has already changed something between them, shifting the conversation toward what their future could hold. Sally may find herself opening that door, wondering aloud if a child is something they might one day share, testing the waters of a dream that feels both terrifying and beautiful. In the weeks ahead, as Sally and Billy begin to map out what comes next, their journey will be defined not just by the answers they receive, but by the choices they make together. And somewhere within that unfolding story lies the question that lingers in the air, heavy with anticipation: will a baby become part of their future, Or will this moment simply be a glimpse of what might have been, a turning point that changes everything without ever fully revealing why? As the silence thickens around her, the moment Sally has been dreading and yet unable to avoid draws closer with an almost suffocating intensity. The small, unassuming test in her hands feels heavier than it should, as though it carries the weight of every hope, every fear, and every memory she has tried so hard to keep buried. Sally Spectra hesitates, her breath unsteady, her thoughts racing through 1,000 different futures all at once. Across from her, Audra Charles remains a steady presence, her calm voice cutting gently through the storm, reminding Sally that no matter the outcome, she won't have to face it alone. And yet, this is a moment Sally knows she must ultimately confront herself, a deeply personal crossroads where the truth will either reshape her world or leave her grappling with what could have been. With trembling resolve, she finally takes that step forward, knowing there is no turning back once the truth reveals itself. Time seems to slow to an agonizing crawl in the moments that follow, every second stretching into what feels like an eternity, as Sally waits for the result that will define her next chapter. Her mind drifts unwillingly to Billy Abbott, imagining his face, his reaction, the way his life might shift in an instant if this possibility becomes real. She wonders if he would be overwhelmed, if he would pull closer to her or retreat under the weight of such an unexpected responsibility, and the uncertainty gnaws at her heart. There is love between them, real and hard-earned, but love alone doesn't erase the complexities of timing, of past wounds, of lives already in motion. In that fragile space between knowing and not knowing, Sally feels the full force of her vulnerability, caught between the hope of creating something beautiful together and the fear of reopening wounds that have never fully healed. When the truth finally arrives, whether it comes as a quiet confirmation or a soft, almost disorienting relief, it doesn't bring the clarity Sally thought it would. Instead, it opens the door to even more questions, deeper emotions, and choices that can no longer be avoided. If the result is positive, it carries with it the promise of new life, but also the echo of the child she lost, a bittersweet reminder that joy and grief can exist side by side. If it's negative, the absence of that possibility still lingers, leaving behind a strange mix of relief and unexpected longing that she cannot easily shake. Either way, something inside Sally shifts, a realization that her future with Billy is no longer something she can leave undefined or unspoken. The test may answer one question, but it ignites 100 more, each one pulling her closer to a conversation she knows she can't delay any longer. As the story moves forward, the focus turns inevitably to the moment when Sally must face Billy and decide how much of her heart she is ready to reveal. Billy Abbott, still grounded in the belief that their future is unfolding at a steady, manageable pace, has no idea that everything could change with a single conversation. When Sally finally stands before him, there will be no easy way to begin, no perfect words to soften the weight of what she's been carrying. And yet, beneath the fear, there is also a quiet strength building within her, a determination to be honest about what she wants, about the life she might still dream of building. Whether she shares news of a pregnancy or simply the realization that she's been forced to confront her deepest desires, the moment will mark a turning point neither of them can ignore. And in the days and weeks that follow, as emotions settle and truths are laid bare, Sally and Billy will find themselves standing at the edge of something new, something undefined yet full of possibility. Together, they will begin to piece together what their next chapter might look like, weighing the risks against the rewards, the fears against the hopes that refuse to fade. The question of a child, once distant and abstract, will now linger between them, no longer hypothetical, but deeply, undeniably real. In the world of the young and the restless, where every choice carries the power to reshape destinies, this moment becomes more than just a test result. It becomes a catalyst, a spark that could either draw them closer than ever before, or reveal cracks they can no longer ignore. And as the camera of this unfolding story slowly pulls back, one truth becomes clear. Whatever comes next for Sally and Billy, their lives are already beginning to change in ways neither of them could have ever fully prepared for. In the quiet aftermath of that life-altering moment, the world doesn't rush forward the way Sally expects it to. Instead, everything slows, as if time itself is giving her space to absorb what has just happened, to steady her racing heart before the next wave inevitably crashes in. Sally Spectra finds herself caught between action and hesitation, knowing that whatever truth she now carries, whether it is hope, relief, or something far more complicated, cannot remain hers alone for long. The weight of telling Billy Abbott presses in on her with growing urgency, each passing moment sharpening the realization that silence is no longer an option. Around her, life continues as normal, conversations flow, and the world hums on. But inside Sally, everything feels altered, as though she's standing just slightly out of sync with reality. Even the smallest details seem heightened, the sound of her own breath, the rhythm of her thoughts, the echo of memories she cannot fully silence. And beneath it all, there is a quiet, persistent question that refuses to fade: what happens next? When Sally finally finds herself face to face with Billy, the atmosphere is charged with an unspoken tension that lingers in every glance and every pause between words. Billy Abbott senses that something is different, something unspoken hovering just beneath the surface, and his usual confidence softens into concern as he searches her face for answers. Sally tries to begin, tries to find the right words, but emotions swell in her chest, making even the simplest sentence feel impossibly heavy. This isn't just about a test result, it's about everything that result represents, every possibility it unlocks, every fear it brings rushing to the surface. As she finally begins to speak, her voice carries the tremor of vulnerability, revealing not just what may or may not have happened, but how deeply it has already affected her. In that moment, the truth becomes less about certainty and more about connection, about whether Billy will meet her in that fragile space or pull away from it. Billy's reaction unfolds slowly, layered with complexity, as the reality of what Sally is sharing settles over him. At first there is surprise, raw and unfiltered, followed quickly by a flood of thoughts he cannot immediately put into words. His life, already shaped by years of experience, responsibility, and the journey of raising children who are no longer small, suddenly feels like it's being re-examined through an entirely new lens. And yet, beneath the uncertainty, there is something else flickering into existence, a sense of possibility he hadn't allowed himself to consider before. He looks at Sally not just as the woman he loves, but as someone standing at the same crossroads, equally unsure, equally hopeful, equally afraid. The conversation that follows is not simple or clean. It is layered with pauses, questions, and emotions that refuse to fit into neat answers, but it is honest in a way that matters more than certainty ever could. As the days begin to unfold after that conversation, the ripple effects of this moment touch everything around them, reshaping their connection in subtle but undeniable ways. Sally Spectra finds herself watching Billy more closely, searching for signs of how he's processing it all, while also confronting her own evolving feelings. There are moments of quiet reflection where the weight of her past, especially the loss she endured with Adam Newman, rises to the surface, reminding her just how fragile hope can be. At the same time, there are flickers of something brighter, something that dares to imagine a future not defined by fear, but by the chance to try again. Billy too begins to shift, his perspective widening as he considers what this could mean not just for himself, but for the life they might build together. It's not a transformation that happens overnight, but rather a gradual unfolding, a series of small realizations that begin to change the way he sees everything. And as their journey continues, the question of what comes next no longer feels like a distant uncertainty, it becomes the very heart of their story. Whether they are preparing for a new life, processing a near miss, or simply navigating the emotional aftermath of what almost was, the experience binds them in a way that cannot be undone, In the ever-evolving world of the young and the restless, where love and loss are never far apart, this chapter becomes a defining moment for them both. It is a test not just of circumstances, but of trust, communication, and the courage to face the unknown together. Filled with both uncertainty and promise, one thing becomes undeniably clear. Their future, whatever shape it takes, will be forged in the choices they make now, in the truths they choose to share, and in the strength they find in each other when it matters most. As the emotional dust begins to settle, a new kind of tension quietly takes its place, one that lingers not in dramatic confrontations, but in the spaces between words, in the glances that last just a little too long. Sally Spectra and Billy Abbott find themselves moving forward, but not quite in the same way they did before, as if something fundamental has shifted beneath their feet. There is a new awareness between them now, a shared understanding that their relationship is no longer just about the present, but about the future they may or may not be ready to build together. Even in their quietest moments, the question of a child lingers like an unspoken presence, shaping their thoughts, influencing their choices, and quietly redefining what they mean to each other. Sally, in particular, feels this shift deeply, her heart caught between the fear of reopening old wounds and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, this time could be different. And in those moments when she allows herself to imagine it, a life filled with laughter, with new beginnings, there is a warmth that begins to push back against the shadows of her past. Yet the past is never far behind, and for Sally, the memory of what she lost with Adam Newman continues to echo in unexpected ways. It surfaces in quiet, unguarded moments, in the stillness of the night when her thoughts drift to what might have been, and in the subtle fear that history could somehow repeat itself. That grief has shaped her, left its mark on how she sees the world, how she protects her heart, and now how she approaches the possibility of loving something so deeply again. Billy begins to notice it too, the way her smile sometimes falters, the way her confidence wavers when the future comes too sharply into focus, and it stirs something protective within him. He starts to understand that this isn't just about a decision or a circumstance, it's about healing, about trust, about proving that not every story has to end in heartbreak. And in that realization, his role begins to shift, from someone reacting to the situation to someone actively choosing to stand beside her, no matter where this path leads. Their conversations grow deeper, more honest, stretching into territories they might once have avoided, as they begin to lay bare their fears, their hopes, and the truths they've both been carrying. Billy Abbott opens up about his own uncertainties, about what it means to consider starting over at this stage in his life, and whether he can truly give Sally the kind of future she deserves. There is vulnerability in his words, a rare and powerful honesty that brings them closer, even as it underscores the complexity of what they're facing. Sally, in turn, allows herself to be equally open, sharing not just her fears but her quiet longing for something more, something lasting and real. It's not an easy conversation, and it doesn't end with perfect clarity, but it builds something stronger than certainty, a foundation of trust that feels steady even in the face of the unknown. In those moments, their connection deepens in a way that feels both fragile and unbreakable, as if they are learning, step by step, how to face the future together. And yet, beyond their private world, the reality of their lives continues to press in, bringing with it the opinions, expectations, and complications that come with everything they've built so far. Family ties, past relationships, and the ever-watchful environment around them all add layers of pressure to an already delicate situation. The idea of a child is no longer just a personal question, it becomes something that could ripple outward, affecting everything and everyone connected to them. Sally feels that weight, the awareness that whatever choice they make will not exist in isolation, but will become part of a much larger story. Billy, too, begins to grapple with that reality, recognizing that this isn't just about what he wants, but about how it fits into the life he's already created. And still, despite all of it, there is a quiet determination growing between them, a sense that whatever challenges lie ahead, they will face them not as individuals but as partners. As this chapter of their story continues to unfold, the question that once felt so urgent begins to transform into something deeper, something more enduring. It's no longer just about whether Sally is pregnant or not, but about what that possibility has revealed, what it has awakened in both of them. In the ever-evolving world of the young and the restless, where every twist carries emotional consequences that echo far beyond the moment itself, this becomes a turning point that cannot be undone. Whether their path leads to new life, renewed commitment, or simply a clearer understanding of what they truly want, one thing is certain: their story has entered a new phase, one defined not by uncertainty alone, but by the courage to confront it. And as the camera of this imagined narrative slowly fades on their shared journey, there is a lingering sense that this is not an ending, but a beginning, one filled with questions, yes, but also with the quiet, powerful promise of everything still to come.